As you may know, every month we have a topic, and every country has opportunity to do his own interpretation of the theme. And the topic silence was quite difficult for us, but lucky us, we found a very special artist. She's a sound artist, and I'm very happy to have you here, Rahel. And please give her a warm welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm very glad to be here, and thanks for this invitation and this wonderful exercise we just did with Daniela. I think it's... Can you understand me? Is it loud enough? Yeah? Okay. Otherwise, please give me a sign, because there is no, as you can see, no microphone. And sometimes I tend to be a little bit low. So, okay. Yeah, I will share some thoughts and ideas about silence. I personally think this is one of the most beautiful things to talk about, but also one of the most difficult, because it's a paradox. Silence doesn't exist, actually, at least from an acoustic point of view. We still hear this noise, or the rustling of the clothing, or maybe you also hear your thoughts, I don't know. Silence is often used as the absence of speech, or the absence of words in general. But actually we always live in a world full of sounds. And I think it's a wonderful fact that we often ignore. For example, we have here this water sound. It's also very beautiful. Maybe you can focus. It's only audible here. Anyway, and even in the most abandoned places, you will hear a sound. Let's imagine you walk in a forest, or you go into the Wienerwald, and most probably you will describe it as silent, but you still hear the crackling of the branches, or you hear the birds. But we describe it as the silence of nature. Thanks. So what do we mean by silence? So is noise the opposite of silence? Or is silence the opposite of loudness? Or does it need to be quiet to experience silence? Silence is a central theme in my research as a musician and performance and sound artist. I'm a trained vocalist and vocal coach, and listening is central also, because as a musician, you always need to listen to textures. You need to kind of listen to the breaks and the pauses, and let's say the continuum of sounds and silences. And today my focus is also on the on the philosophical and the psychological aspect of sound. So I'm very interested also what sound and silence makes with us. And my projects are at the moment no longer on a fixed stage. I also do projects which are for hiking paths, or which are combined with walking. One of my latest projects was an audio walk, where you could walk from A to B, and through your walking, I mean, you hear the sounds on headphones, and the sounds or the composition is triggered by your location. So this is one thing that I do, and that is connected with the silence and listening. So I think we can approach silence from many different directions. But I will approach it as a silence, as an approach as a practice of listening. And I would like to invite you to do a short experiment. You found these sheets of paper. I wrote a couple of instructions for my upcoming book publication, which is dealing with sound and paper in the combination. And one of the scores is this one: eyes closed and ears covered with 2 thin paper sheets to hum. I don't know if you feel comfortable enough also to hum. So you put these 2 papers on your ear and just lightly move your hands as well, and we hum. And if I do this, we stop. So what we just experienced now, I would describe it as loud and quiet at the same time. It's noisy, the paper is very noisy and intense, and most probably the humming was perceived much quieter as the paper. So I ask again, what is silence? Is it the absence of sound? Or is it the absence of thought? Or, as I said before, the absence of words or speech? The dictionary explains it as the absence of thought. The absence of sound. But then the question arises, have you ever experienced this? The complete absence of sound. I suppose you never did. Because at least you will hear your heartbeat or your breathing. And I think if you don't hear it anymore, you will be dead. So maybe keep it in, or bury it in mind. If you won't hear anything anymore, maybe you will be dead. I don't know. But there is also, I think, in one Buddhist philosophy, there is this saying that they shout actually into one's ear if you're dead. So to kind of support you, they shout and say, "You are dead now." So I think this is also to the sense of hearing. 2 years ago, I conducted a project in the Swiss Alps with my Japanese collaborator, Tomoko Hocho. And we interviewed people what they think or feel. Sorry, I need to say the opposite around. We ask which sounds are creating a feeling of home, and which sounds would you take with you if you would move. And one story was very touching for me. One lady, she used to be a shepherd. So she spent a lot of time in the mountains, alone with the goats. And she said that she experiences snowfall as a loud silence. And I thought a lot about this snowfall and loud silence and what does it mean. And I think it's kind of true because we suddenly hear our own noises very loud. So our breathing is loud, or our footsteps. And then we feel like every noise that we do is kind of interrupting this silence. But this is also creating an embracing. It's like we are enclosed. Or it can be also an isolation in a way. So it has nothing to do, silence has nothing to do with a real silence, oftentimes. It's perceived acoustically and psychologically. And I think we all know this loud silence. We all experience this. It's mostly happening in talks or in conversations when we want to say something, but we actually kind of can't say something. And then these silences or these pauses, they feel like loud. And I think if we experience it, we can actually practice listening. So you can try it out if it happens again, and you kind of in this loud silence in a conversation, just try to listen. Silence is not the absence of sound, but the beginning of listening. I really love this quote. It's in the book from Salome Vögeling. She's an artist and writer who has listening as a practice. And it's from the book Listening to Noise and Silence. So how can we learn to listen? And what does listening mean? And how can we listen as a practice of silence? I think when we start to listen, we encounter silence in a new way. But what is the difference then between hearing and listening? Because we constantly hear, but we often do not listen. So the small child in the mother's belly starts to hear already in the fourth month. So it's one of the senses that is already there very early in our lives. And as you may know, we are all born and know the family voices. So I think hearing is a powerful and also a crucial sense. But we still forget it, that we have it. So again, what is the difference between hearing and listening? So listening is to give attention, or what we also did before, to a broader sense. It's acoustically, it's psychologically, and also bodily. It's a little bit far. Again. So it's focusing on the entire field of sounds. And we are also open to tiny sounds. And open to the detail. I also think that listening automatically calms our minds. You can try it out just now. So just focus on the sound quality of my voice, not of what I'm saying. So try just to listen for, you can try it as long as you want, to the voice quality, to the breathing, and to the tones, and also to the noises that I make. Are you still able to think when you do that? And what is the difference between focusing on the sound quality of my voice and on focusing what I'm saying? I don't know if you still understand me. So listening has always a focus on everything what is here. And also everyone in this room perceives my voice differently. It's a mysterious process. I think I shorten a bit. Still have time? Okay. I also think that noise can bring us silence too. Because it's often regarded noise, it's regarded as something bad, or it's noisy and there is too much noise. But I think this is not true. I think we just need to look it from the other way around. Of course, nature, we also say nature is bringing us silence. but also in the nature there are always some noises that we hear. Now let's see if I can play a piece. Can you still understand me with this sound? Yeah, besides? Okay. So this piece was composed for an audio walk in the Schlossgarten in Karlsruhe. And it's a piece which is dealing with dawn, so with the transition between dreaming and being awake, and between light and dark, and also silence and loudness. And at this time we recorded a lot in the dark. And you need to imagine you're in the city park and it's dark, and through the microphone you hear every tiny sound. And also everything is suddenly very loud. And this is what I mean with that the noise is not something that we should shut out or kind of ignore. Because wherever we are, it is noisy. And most of the time when we ignore it, it disturbs us. So if we are ignored from this humming here, you can suddenly focus. It will disturb you. So I don't think that we need to create a space without sound. I only think that we need to decide that we listen. It's a decision. And I also think when we listen, we build different houses, and we would build different cities when we are aware that there is also a soundscape. I also really invite you to listen to the spaces when you go out now, and to be aware actually how these spaces sound. I mean, sometimes it's horrible because it creates in this time then very much loudness, and sometimes we feel comfortable or kind of enclosed in sound. I didn't say anything to this. I just want to give it to you. It's from Pauline Oliveros. She was the founder of the Deep Listening Institute, and she was a composer of experimental music. And she did a lot. I think her whole life was kind of thinking about what listening means and what listening means in relation to sound. And I love this exercise. You can actually do it all the time. So listen to an outward sound, listen to an inward sound, and kind of this connection. So I also think that we need to pause, and that we need to stop to enter silence. But we don't need to ignore the sound or the noise, because sound is constantly entering my ears. And listening is an activity. It's active. And it's also an interactivity, what is surrounding me. I think it's an engagement with the world. And I deeply wish that we all practice listening a bit more. And listening without judgment. And with being present in the body. So it's opening our awareness to the continuum of sound and silences. And it's easy, and it's free. But humans tend to choose the more complicated things in life. So I want to finish with another score. So connect what is not connected to build. And I suggest that we finish with 1 minute listening. And maybe we can try this, listen to an outward sound and listen to an inward sound. Yeah, for 1 minute. Thank you very much.